You're listening to the Youth Critic Podcast on KHZ Network. Find us on Facebook at Decibel UNG Radio and find us on Twitter at Decibel UNG. If you like this episode, please leave a like and comment on our iTunes page at KHZ Network. And now for the podcast.
Can you describe its form?
No.
Start from the beginning.
What do you think I do when you're away?
You think I'm out in the garden pining, looking up at the sky?
Why aren't you here?
I gotta leave a day early.
Your husband's here.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Youth Critic Podcast. I'm your host, Cale Smith. Joining me today is Chris Patton.
Hey, it's me.
And also we have Gina Versa.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
And today we are going to be talking about two movies that are sci-fi, and they both will be on Netflix altogether in a few weeks.
Eventually.
Yep. Thanks to Paramount's wonderful deal they have with Netflix. The two movies we are talking about are Annihilation and Mute. Today, how it's going to go is we're going to have a kind of we're starting on spoilers on Annihilation very quickly, get it out of the way, talk about our thoughts, and then we'll go into spoilers for Annihilation, and then we'll kind of just do a mild review for Mute, since Chris has not seen the movie yet.
Right.
All right, and
I could ask a couple questions, I guess.
Yeah,
Because I like the other. What was the guy? Duncan
Jones.
Yeah, I liked his other movies, but after I saw the reviews for Mute, I was just like, I'll just skip out on it. So, I know nothing about it other than people think it's not great.
It kind of just came up on the scene.
So I know there's a mute guy in it. That's it. So I'm curious to know what it's actually about. So.
Right.
Yeah, but before we get into Mute, let's get into Annihilation. So, starting with you, Chris, what did you think of Annihilation?
Just to be brief, I saw what it was doing, I think. But when at the end of the day, not my cup of tea. Not my kind of movie. Certain stronger parts about it, but overall I kind of walked away and just shrugged and said, I didn't get anything out of it. That's my overall thoughts, but I can go more into depth about certain, parts of it, but that's pretty much it. Just didn't care for it.
Gene?
I saw it last week. A little 1 day earlier screening, and I really enjoyed it. I like Alex Garland as a writer. I certainly love Dredd, Ex Machina. So I was very interested in seeing his sophomore film, and I was not disappointed. I love the film. I think it's classic sci-fi. It's very standoffish. I'll say that. It's not for everyone. But from what I saw, I really enjoyed it. The last sequence, the last 30 minutes, really creeped me out. He gave me a flashback by doing that, humming the theme right now. So, yeah, I really dug it.
I think I'm in the middle of you guys, because I definitely don't hate this movie, but the thing about the film is we heard, I think it was about November that we heard that the test screenings for the movie were not going well, and people were having problems with characters, and people were having problems with the ending. And I can see what the problem was in the test screening, but I don't think it had anything to do with audiences' intellect or or that it was too intellectual or the movie was too intellectual. I thought the film was just
that's Batman v Superman. That's the one that people are not smart enough to get.
Right.
Didn't
get it.
Yeah. It was an art film, a 250 million art film. But for me, as a whole, and not to go too into spoiler yet, but as a whole, I thought the script could have been way better. I thought there was too much tell and not show, and it's a hard balance because we don't know that much about these characters, and the whole idea, I think, of the structure of the book was that we didn't know that much about the characters anyway. So
yeah, didn't they not have names?
They don't give each other's names. I didn't read the book, but I looked up details about it. They only call each other by their titles, whatever their profession is. The author does not give them a name the entire book. So that works for a book, but for a movie, I can see why they had to give them a name and a face.
It's like, medic.
They're like the medic or the biologist.
Right.
Or
anthropologist.
Dunkirk
which is a really awkward way to refer to everybody.
Right. Oh, hey, well, Dunkirk doesn't have names for some characters.
Oh yeah, no, it's like that's not a. I think that continually referring to you would have to refer to each other, and since it's a whole team of women, you or even if it was a whole team of guys, you either refer to them as the whatever or him. And saying him did to he and he, like, it would get kind of confusing, and you'd have to be like, who is he talking about? So you would have to refer to them as their title, and continually saying that would get really annoying, I think. Not bad for the book, but I don't think that would really work out for the movie.
Well, going back to Dunkirk, the reason why I think Dunkirk can get away with little characterization is because the environment kind of sets up, basically kind of sets up what these characters are going to go through, and what it kind of puts you in the mood already that these characters have very clear goals and they want to just escape. Whereas Annihilation, it's kind of, the goal is to research and find more information about the Shimmer, the thing that's kind of causing, this kind of kind of random cataclysmic event. But the thing is about these characters are that they try to develop them, but it's more of a lazy, but it's more in a lazy way of just like the writer kind of writing dialogue to describe them more than rather to build characters. So it's just I just felt like from a screenwriting perspective, it could have been better. But however, the directing is still immaculately crafted. I mean, you brought up the last 30 minutes of the film, and those 30 minutes, like, if you're with the rhythm of the movie and you're with like what's happening in the story, it is a very intense last 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, like that was really creepy,
It is. It's creepy because it's creepy in like what is thematically happening in the story, and what we have been told about the characters, going forward, and that's why it's so terrifying at the end.
Right. That was like a bad trip seeing that last 30 minutes.
It was. So I think
I would say that was my favorite part of the movie, was the butt end of the film. Because that's what I was wanting the rest of the film to be like. I wish the rest of the film was that, just over 2 hours.
Right.
Oh,
no, for sure.
Not that scene, but you know what I mean. More stuff like it. I wasn't really getting the whole like visual vibe of them walking through Florida swampland. I thought the would you guys call it Lovecraftian?
Oh yeah,
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 I would say
was
kind of Lovecraftian with the
Oh,
mind bendy. Are we spoilers? Are we spoilers?
You know what? We are
we
going.
spoilers.
You know what? Let's do
Are
it.
we
Let's
into
go into
spoilers?
spoilers.
The thing at the end, whatever you would call the bubble. I don't know what else to call it, but the thing that fluid shape that has the light inside that she stares into for like
That
10
more-
minutes.
That morphs into the alien or the manifestation.
I guess
yeah,
it's the entity.
yeah, let's call it that. It turns into a silver CGI humanoid.
Right.
That thing.
the shape.
I was thinking that would have been more interesting to see, because overall I thought that that was more interesting visually than it's a shark it's an alligator with shark teeth, or a bear that's a skull. And I thought that was more of an interesting thing, and I thought it really didn't mesh with everything we saw before of like a guy exploded against the wall and it was fungus. I thought it was kind of weird. I'm like, I don't know. I want him to see more alien like plant life, like the crystal trees. Like once you get to the lighthouse, I was like, oh, cool. Crystal trees and weird holes in the ground and weird plant stuff and all that kind of things. But I thought more of those being a part of, as opposed to things that we already know just smushed together. Like when they look at the flowers before the gator scene, and she's like, oh, they're all part of the same plant, but they're different plants. I was kind of confused because I was like, that's it? It's just a rose bush got blended with some lilies? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to have that kind of setup to kind of set up like what is going on in the Shimmer and how there's going to be Man Bear Pig showing up later.
Man Bear, yeah, but Man Bear Pig just made it more confusing. Every time they introduced a new thing, it got more inconsistent for me, because I was like, oh, well, what's going on? And then the characters look at the camera and shrug and say, I don't know. For real, actually. They actually say, I don't know, to a lot of stuff. Like, and right. I thought of Alien. I'm rambling a bit, but in comparison to the movie Alien sets up a lot of stuff where it's like, oh, you don't. Ridley Scott would later ruin it, but everything's a mystery in that movie. But that works out because it's like, okay, it's just an alien in a spaceship and some weird alien animal that has a weird breeding pattern. Like, what is it? Probably just an animal that's just a big killing machine. Is it bred to be that way? Maybe. But that doesn't matter because the threat at hand is just surviving the thing. But it's not like some unknowable miasma of the Force or whatever the Prism thing was. Right. So that's more like my kind of thing. I get why people like Annihilation. I've been reading some reviews, and that's just not my kind of thing, of the whole like, it asks all these questions and then the characters just shrug and say whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, do they? I mean, like, they
kind of figure stuff out, but it's still like,
Well, I mean, they're on a fact-finding mission to try to get to the meaning of the spear. I mean, for stuff like, the crystal trees or giant crocodiles. I mean, she looks at the teeth and
it's an alligator. It's an alligator. Crocodile. I was going to do the thing where I'm like, no, it's technically an alligator because crocodiles are in Africa, alligators are in Florida.
Oh, okay. Right.
Whatever.
Alligator, I mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, they examine that and, she sees that it's not her husband. She figures that out. But, I mean, they couldn't, like, stop and, like, analyze the bear or whatever. They just had to keep going. I mean, some stuff they, for the purpose of their mission, they had to just keep moving along,
keep moving to the lighthouse.
Yeah.
I get that. It's just, I get why the movie does the things it does. It's just the things it does just kind of make me shrug and say, I don't know. Like, personally, I wasn't hooked by the mystery. Like, the mystery never made me go like, oh, like the twists and turns never made me just go like, oh, like edge of my seat. Like, I want to get to the bottom of this, because I'm sitting here the whole time. Like, I figured out what was happening from the trailer. Like, the movie didn't give me anything more than the 2-minute trailer, where it's like things are getting mixed around and weird. And I'm like, oh, it's just something that's combining things together or duplicating things or whatever. And then the movie's like, yep, pretty much that. And I was like, oh, so I wasn't really invested in anything that was happening.
Well, I think you're supposed to get invested in it because it's going to grow and change and take over the world and cause basically rapid evolution that will end humanity as we know, or change humanity as we know it. And that's the danger of the Shimmer, is that it's coming to basically annihilate humanity. It came to annihilate humanity to create something new.
Right.
And that's the fear. And that's basically the fear. And that's basically what the film is about. And that's what the stakes are. So I get that there were supposed to be stakes. There was supposed to be this
I guess I
whole
just
entire
didn't
thing.
feel... I understood that was the thing, because they're like, well, it started here, now it's like so big, and it's been expanding for 3 years. It's essentially a weed. Like, and that's how it gets, spoilers, but that's how they, or not they, but that's how Natalie Portman's character, what's her name?
Jenna, I think, or Lena.
Yeah. She burns it pretty much. Like, everything, I guess, it just goes away because it got burnt. And I'm like, oh, that's how you kill plants, so I guess it's a plant. But that's what I meant, is that I just shrugged and said, I don't know, I guess it's a plant. But I guess the movie never really made me feel those stakes. You know, where it's like, oh, it's going to eventually take over the world. And I'm like, how long does it take? Like it's taken it 3 years to move out a mile or something. Or not a mile, it wouldn't take them that long to get there. But like, I was like, that's really slow. So it was like your villain was molasses. Like, oh no, the big molasses factory is going to engulf this town in the next 10 years. What are we going to do? We got to stop it. And then I'm just like, oh, well, I mean, we got time, I guess. That's what I think it was. It wasn't like this thing is like, it's expanding exponentially. It was just kind of like, oh, yeah, it'll get here eventually. And it's like, oh, ooh, now I'm really on the edge of my seat.
Well, so let me ask this.
Because wouldn't the next thing just fuck it, burn it? Like, if they didn't succeed, like, I'm pretty sure, like, they would have been like, all right, drop some napalm over it, just burn the thing to the ground, and that probably would have worked.
Well, if it's science, they have to kind of discover it, because what if blowing it up won't work?
Right, but I mean, that's what I'm saying is their last minute thing, is that they're like, oh, well, we'll never realize what it's about because everyone goes in there, dies, so they can't get anything out of it. They'd probably just be like, well, just try it, I guess, and then they burn it. And I'm guessing fire was super effective against it. It was its weakness. And then that would have worked, and they'd be like, oh, well, we never figured it out, but I guess it's over.
Well, then let me ask this
Mission
again.
accomplished.
Do you think this is a perfect allegory for cancer?
No. I mean, I get
Think about it.
I mean, the movie wants it to be. And that's what I feel is, like, the movie keeps wanting this to mean something, at least for me. Because, like, I remember the movie hits me over the head with the frying pan when Natalie Portman's like, look, cells duplicate, and they're cancer cells. And then I just got hit in the head with the movie hit me in the back of the head with the frying pan and looked at me and said, like, did you get it? And I'm like, yeah, I got it. It was really obvious.
You mean Natalie Portman looked up at the camera and screamed, do you get it, audience?
It's cancer. We self-destruct. And I'm just like, movie, let me figure this shit out on my own. Stop telling me everything. That's my problem, was the movie kept, like, looking at the camera to say, like, get it? We self-destruct. We change. You know, we evolve. Things, we duplicate ourselves sometimes. I don't know what that was supposed to mean. The whole duplication thing really just made me forget what the movie was even about, honestly. Like the actual duplicating, where they made 2 Oscar Isaacs or something. Which I'm like, oh yay, more Oscar Isaacs. He can be in twice the amount of movies. And then one of them blows himself up. I'm like, oh well.
You bastard. But
Hey, if you had 2 Oscar Isaacs, would you be that upset?
Gene, what do you think?
If we had 2 Natalie Portmans, then it would be a problem.
No. Okay. Anyway, so do we have any more to say on Annihilation? Because my basic consensus is it's a really, I enjoy it. It's a nice thematic ride, and if you're with its rhythm, and if you're willing to go with its kind of theme of its allegory of cancer and its theme of self-destruction, you might get something in it. But yeah, I think it sucks because I wish we would get more. I wish we would, see more of these. I wish they were going to finish the trilogy, but it doesn't look that way unless it really hits big with Netflix. So, yeah. Chris, do you have any more final thoughts?
I guess that was it. That's my final thoughts. Man, that started to get annoying.
But it's a really cool tune, though.
Eh?
It's alien. It's creepy.
Was it actually making that sound, or was that the music?
I think it's the music.
Oh, because if it actually made that sound, I was confused because I was like, is it, or is it the music? I couldn't tell. I don't know. What's that bear? I don't know.
It's creepy,
God.
though.
The dialogue, though, I forgot to talk about that. So let me go on for another 3 hours. No, I just didn't like the dialogue. I thought it was really weak. That's it. Like the bear voice screaming, the girl's voice in the bear. And it was like, help me. And I just kind of went, help me, I'm a bear. And it's like, her mind went into the bear. And I said, huh?
Jeez.
Huh? What? No, I thought that it just took her vocal cords or something. Like, that's what I thought, because they were saying, like,
I think that's what happened.
Her vocal cords got prismed into it, but Tessa Thompson's like, I think the last thing she thought was fear, and that went into the bear's brain. And so that's why it sounded like that. And I went, And then she said, bye, I'm going to become a flower person. And I said, okay. Bye.
Yeah. So, Gene, do you have any more final thoughts?
Sorry, what's that?
Do you have any more final thoughts on Annihilation?
Annihilation?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It is not for everyone, but for hard science fiction, I definitely enjoyed it. So I would recommend it to people, for sure.
Yeah. And my final note is, if you don't really love Lovecraftian stuff, maybe just don't watch sci-fi. Because sci-fi
Lovecraftian isn't really sci-fi, though. Lovecraftian can be sci-fi.
But it's been a lot of sci-fi lately.
Yeah, but the Lovecraftian is just like that, like staring into eternity, 1,000 eyes type thing, where it's like it's just it's a nightmare realm that you go into, and that can be brought about by like a fantasy element or a science fiction element. But yeah, it can just be kind of inserted into whatever you want.
Okay. But yeah,
like Mickey Mouse could do Lovecraft if he wanted to. That'd be really weird.
If Disney would allow it, but
that'd be crazy.
All right, so we're gonna move on to Mute. All right, so Chris, you have not seen Mute, right?
No, Kale. What is Mute about?
Mute is about this Amish guy who lives in Berlin, Germany, in the future, where he has been mute because he had his like vocal cords like sliced by a boat repeller or something, and
Jeez, how did that happen?
it explains itself in the movie better. But but also what happened? But also, he has a girlfriend that he really loves, and she goes missing, and he goes on a journey to find her, despite his kind of technical illiteracy. And he's trying to find her in kind of this really technological environment. And while this is happening, Paul Rudd and Justin Theroux are like two like AWOL missionaries that do like secret, that do like kind of like mob doctor medical work and on the side.
Yeah.
And they become part of the plot eventually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But really, the main story is Alexander Skarsgård.
Wait, the main story.
Yeah, but the main story is Alexander Skarsgård's mute, also known as Leo, is in search of his girlfriend.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the real story was something else, not the girlfriend thing.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna be like, oh no.
So, and the movie is kind of long. Actually, it's really long, and it kind of is boring. And then something happens with Justin Theroux's character, and then it gets even more boring after that, and then it just gets confusing and then long. So, Gene, did I describe the movie perfectly?
Yeah. I've been following Mute for a while. I believe I was watching the Moon special features a while ago, and he's even Duncan Jones is talking about it there even. So I've been like really following this for a while, and I really liked it. I mean, again, I feel like this is another divisive movie based on certain decisions he made with the script and how to tell the story. It's very narratively. I think it's not like flawed. I feel like that's just the style of chose, where it was
what?
kind of a noir storytelling method where, you have like two storylines where they don't even meet, like more than halfway through. But I mean, I like that, I felt that was very gutsy to do, and it didn't fly with everyone, but I mean, I liked it. Duncan Jones is one of my favorite filmmakers. I like everything he's done, Warcraft, Source Code, Moon, and I like this. So
one of those is not like the others.
What's that?
One of those was not like the others. I think it's funny Warcraft sticks out like
right.
like amongst everything else. It's
that's
not like the others.
Studio film.
Yeah. Actually, didn't see that. Oh.
So before I go into a deep dive on my thoughts, Chris, do you have any questions for us so far?
So that's the story. Is he's mute? Did they do anything? How does he communicate with people if he can't talk? Like, does he use sign language, or is it like he visual only? Like,
he does do sign language, but he also will write notes on a notepad.
Is there any like standout moments where you'd be like, "Oh, that was a really cool way to direct that scene with like how he communicates," or is it just kind of? Because that's the one thing I would wonder if I had to write a story with a guy who couldn't talk. I'd be like, well, how do I do this? How do I make him interact with anybody?
Gene, do you have any?
Is there anything that was like, oh, that was cool? Or is it straightforward?
I'll just say this. There are scenes in the movie where he's just where he's trying to, express, his frustration of not like finding his girlfriend, and it's just, going on day after day after day. And so there are a few moments where he expresses his anger, but it's in quiet. Like he cannot verbally express it. And also there's kind of a couple scenes where he has to like just...
Does he pull out a picture of his girlfriend and cry sometimes? Like the music gets all sad and he looks at a picture on his phone and
every
he's, like,
now and
flipping
then.
through 'em?
Every
Oh,
now
really?
and then. Like it's not like a constant presence, but it's...
Oh, man.
But it happens from time to time. But and that is kind of the story and how it's told. Like every now and then it does get clever, but then and this is kind of my issue with the script is how Leo kind of puts the puzzle together of what's happened is kind of absurd. Like it's kind of absurd
Like
how
how is it
What?
absurd? How is
it's
it
absurd. It's absurd because a lot of it is coincidental, and then a lot of it is just like he's just kind of stumbles into places,
Right.
to find information. Like he basically walks into a scene where a guy is like watching two robots fuck,
Okay.
and then he stumbles into a room.
Wait, what?
I don't remember this scene.
What?
There's
Does anyone get anything out of that? Like,
it's really funny.
it's two robots. Like, what's happening in that?
Okay, but so as you were saying though,
What end?
Okay. Hold on. But he walks in and like just walks in and bursts in and walks in and finds, a picture of maybe his girlfriend. It's like in silhouette. And then, but it has her name on it. And then he's like, okay, I'll go interrogate this guy that has this picture. And then he'll say something. And
How
then
do you interrogate somebody if you're mute? Like,
it's not
I
as,
mean, he's definitely
this movie sounds hilarious the way you're describing it.
oh,
if
it's
you look
not.
at, like, if you look at films like maybe like other noir films like Inherent Vice, or I'm trying to name some other ones that aren't coming to mind, but I mean that, sometimes that happens to move the plot along. It's like
Yeah.
it's a narrative device,
But this plot moves at like a snail pace anyway, so
How long
a
is the
little
movie?
bit. I
Is
mean,
it
like-
I wish he had an editor that cut some stuff out, like a more, a more strong-willed editor that was telling him like, no, change this or whatever. But again, it's definitely a decisive movie, and I mean, I enjoyed the risks it took. I mean, you don't see that a noir film like that in like cinema today,
I guess, but the thing is, it's cool that they built this environment, and that's the one thing I'll say about Mute is that it's beautiful to look at, and Clint Mansell's music makes it incredible to listen to. Like it's like a very beautiful 2-hour music video. So
Okay.
But the problem is you can cut like 30 minutes out of this movie and make it go faster, and you won't miss anything. You won't miss anything from Justin Theroux and Paul Rudd's characters. You won't miss anything from Leo's storyline, and also it doesn't really.
I mean, I like those characters. What's that?
Well, I'm just saying, like, you can cut 30 minutes and you won't miss a beat, and you'll still get the same information. My whole thing about me is it just goes too long, and
Okay.
even like for something like Blade and Blade Runner 2049, those movies kind of, they're still like, they still evolve. They have like things going on, and Mute just moves very slow. Information that already was conveyed earlier, you kind of already get the sense in the first like 15-20 minutes of who these characters are, but then over the course of the film it's explained like by other characters coming in to explain everything that's going on, everything that these characters things that we already knew from the characters. So it's just, like you said, it needs a stronger editor, because I can see this movie working. I can see this movie visually working and meaning something. And there is a cool idea of like some of an Amish person needing to find their love, needing to find someone in the midst of, a very technological environment and a very futuristic society. And he has to kind of figure out how to use tech to basically find the person he loves, even if he's coming to terms with that idea that maybe that person's gone. So there's some really good ideas like that. It's just, it feels a lot like, it feels too much like padding. It feels too much. And that's really the ultimate.
Feels too much.
Yeah. It just, yeah. And it's just not enough there to warrant, not enough substance to back it up to warrant the 2-hour runtime. And look, I don't mind long movies as long as the pace, as long as the substance behind it backs up the length. And that's what I think that's what Mute fails at. Which is so odd because the problems with Warcraft is the exact opposite. Warcraft is too little information and everyone is horribly miscast, whereas here there's too much information and everyone's perfectly cast.
Right.
Like Justin Theroux is perfect as a creepy guy who is a creepy pedophile, and Paul Rudd is perfect as this kind of temper tantrum, person who's kind of sick of being who's homesick with his daughter, and it's all perfectly well cast. And the one more thing I'll say about Mute, because we do have to kind of wrap the show up really soon, is I do love the idea in it that, I do love the twist. It's just, it wasn't that well fleshed out enough.
Okay.
I do love the twist, and I do love that, what it could mean for Leo, and I won't spoil it too much, but what it could mean for Leo and another character in the movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Chris, do you have any more questions before we get into final thoughts?
Would you recommend Mute? It doesn't sound like you would.
Maybe the soundtrack.
The soundtrack?
Yeah. It's a bummer because I really do like Duncan Jones. I really do. And Warcraft, it's not a bad movie. Warcraft isn't a completely terrible movie. It's just its problems are very present. And then, of course, Mute is just, it has not enough going in. So,
Okay.
Or not enough to back up. So I would say a mild pass on it.
Okay.
A mild pass.
Yeah. Because this Mute is not the worst movie I've seen this year. It's not.
Well, it's February.
I know. It's not. Well, I've seen a few
March.
things that are terrible.
Dang, it is March. I forgot. We only had 28 days.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oops. It's
28
March
days
1st,
later.
everybody.
Right. I would recommend this film. To some people. I would recommend it if they were drinking or if they wanted to chill out or something. If they really had 2 hours to kill and nothing to do and they were kind of a little tipsy or something.
Okay. On that note, I think we can go into plugins.
Okay.
Gene, where can the good people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Gene9892. You could listen to the podcast, the Waffle Press Movie Podcast. It's on iTunes, YouTube, and it's on Patreon. I'm literally just going to collect the money from the sponsor to support the podcast right now at lunch, and you could also support it by donating to Patreon if you want to have more shows. So yeah.
Nice. All right, Chris, where can the good people find you?
Well, Kale, I don't know if we should try to advertise it, even though we haven't officially started it yet, but we might as well say that we have something in the works, right?
Oh, sweet.
We have a YouTube channel in the works that we're getting ready to start.
Called Lemon Bat.
Lemon Bat, which, no, we will never tell you what that means. You don't deserve it. But Kale, I guess you can probably describe what it's going to be about better than I can.
Okay, so we
Talk
mentioned
too much.
We'll mention this more on the Sunday podcast, but with Brandon. But Brandon, Chris, and I are starting a YouTube channel where we talk about movies, video games, but instead of it being, just a regular movie and video games, thing, we're going to have kind of different topics we're going to go through every week. Like Chris and I will do we'll do a YouTube video about certain Netflix movies that come out every month. And I think Brandon and Chris will review video games and probably do video games before a movie comes out, review video games before a movie adaptation comes out, like Tomb Raider or Rampage. And then I will do a book versus film adaptation for the site or the channel. And
sounds good.
Yeah. So
a trifecta
we
trifecta
should
plus of content.
I should check that out.
yeah. All right.
Coming soon-ish.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I will put a link to that in the description below. So you can find me on Twitter at MovieKale, and you can also follow the podcast at The Youth Critic, and you can also follow the channel that distributes this podcast at KHC Network. Thanks, everyone. We will be back with you real soon.
Bye.
He's extremely ill.
You have to tell me where he was, what he was doing.
It was his decision to go in. It's something they termed the Shimmer. We've sent in drones and teams of people, but nothing comes back.
But something has.
You're a biologist. You served in the military.
If I knew what happened, I could save his life.
The boundary's getting bigger, it's expanding.
We're talking cities, states.
You need to know what's inside. So do I.